The letter was handed to Jimmy Fallon during a commercial break. It came from Robin Williams' daughter, and the words inside were too powerful for him to finish reading on live television. August 12, 2014. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Studio 6B, Rockefeller Center. It had been exactly 1 day since the world learned that Robin Williams was gone. The news had broken the previous morning. Social media exploded. News channels ran continuous coverage. Tributes poured in from every corner of the entertainment world. Robin Williams, the man who made generations laugh, who brought joy to millions through movies like Mrs. Doubtfire, Good Will Hunting, Dead Poets Society, had taken his own life at age 63. Jimmy Fallon was devastated. Robin had been on The Tonight Show multiple times. Their interviews were legendary, pure chaos, improvisation, laughter that couldn't be contained. Robin would riff for 20 minutes straight, doing voices, creating characters on the spot, making Jimmy laugh so hard he'd have to wipe tears from his eyes. Now those tears would be for a different reason. The show had to go on. That's what you do in television. You show up. You perform. You give people what they need, even when you're breaking inside. Jimmy walked onto the stage that Tuesday night to respectful applause. No music. No dancing. The audience understood this wasn't a normal show. This was something else. "I have to talk about Robin Williams," Jimmy said, standing at his mark, no jokes, no preamble. His voice was already thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can get through this." The audience was silent. 300 people holding their collective breath. Jimmy talked about Robin. About his genius. About the first time they met. About how Robin had called him when Jimmy got The Tonight Show, offering advice, offering encouragement, offering friendship. "He was the kindest person," Jimmy said, his voice cracking. "And the funniest. And I can't believe he's gone." The cameras stayed on Jimmy's face. The control room didn't cut away. America needed to see this. Needed to witness grief that wasn't polished or packaged. And then, during the commercial break before the first guest segment, a production assistant approached Jimmy at his desk. She handed him an envelope. "This just arrived," she said quietly. "Courier delivered it 20 minutes ago. It's from Zelda Williams." Jimmy's hands froze. Robin's daughter, 25 years old, who had just lost her father in the most public, painful way imaginable. "She wants you to read it," the PA continued. "On air. Tonight." Jimmy looked at the envelope. Cream-colored stationery. His name written in careful handwriting on the front. He didn't open it. "Not yet. Tell me what it says first," he said. "I don't know." She sealed it. The note attached just says, "Please read this tonight. My dad would want Jimmy to have these words." The commercial break was ending. 30 seconds. Jimmy slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket. He'd deal with it later. He couldn't process this now. But the weight of it stayed with him through the entire show. Through the interview with his scheduled guest. Through the comedy sketch. Through every moment, he felt that envelope against his chest. A physical reminder of grief he hadn't even begun to understand. What Jimmy didn't know was that Zelda Williams had written that letter at 3 a.m., sitting in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by her father's things, trying to find words for the impossible. The show was winding down. Final segment. Usually this would be a musical performance, or a fun game. Tonight, Jimmy had planned to just sign off early. Give people permission to mourn. But during the last commercial break, he pulled the envelope from his pocket. His hands were shaking as he broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. Zelda's distinctive script that Jimmy recognized from birthday cards Robin used to show him, from notes Robin would carry in his pocket to remind himself of his daughter's love. Jimmy read the first line. His breath caught. He read the second line. Tears filled his eyes. By the third line, he knew he couldn't keep this private. This was something the world needed to hear. But he also knew it would destroy him to read it aloud. The commercial break ended. They were live. Jimmy looked directly into the camera. "Before we go tonight," he said, his voice already unsteady, "I received something during the show. A letter. From Zelda Williams, Robin's daughter." The studio went completely silent. "She asked me to read it on air. And I'm going to try. But I need you to understand, I don't know if I can finish this." He held up the letter so the camera could see it. Handwritten. Real. Not a script. Not a bit. "This is what she wrote," Jimmy said, and began to read. "Dear Jimmy, my dad loved you. Not just as a comedian or as a host, but as a person. He told me once that you reminded him of himself when he was younger. That same joy, that same need to make people happy, that same inability to sit still. He watched your show every night. Did you know that? Even when he was struggling. Even on the bad days. He'd watch you and he'd laugh, and for those few minutes, he'd forget whatever darkness was chasing him." Jimmy's voice cracked. He paused, swallowed hard, continued. "He told me something 2 weeks before he died. We were sitting in the backyard and he said, 'When I'm gone, and I will be gone someday, I want you to remember that I spent my whole life trying to make people laugh because I knew what it felt like to be sad. And if I could take away even one person's sadness for even 5 minutes, then I did something that mattered.'" Jimmy's hands were trembling now. The letter shook in his grip. Tears were streaming down his face. "Jimmy, my dad is gone. And I'm sad. And I'm angry. And I don't understand why this happened. But I'm writing to you because I need you to know something." Jimmy stopped. He looked at the next line. He tried to speak. No words came. The audience watched him struggle. 300 people witnessing a man trying to honor a promise to read words that were breaking his heart in real time. Jimmy tried again. His voice was barely a whisper. "The last time my dad laughed, I mean really laughed, the kind of laugh that made his whole body shake, was watching your show. 3 days before he died. You were doing that lip-sync bit with Emma Stone. And my dad laughed so hard he had to pause the TV because he was missing parts." Jimmy's voice broke completely. He lowered the letter. He couldn't continue. His shoulders shook. On live television, Jimmy Fallon was crying openly, unable to finish the letter from his hero's daughter. Backstage, the producer made a decision that defied every rule of live television. He told the crew to keep rolling, no matter how long Jimmy needed. The studio band sat motionless. Questlove had tears on his face. The audience was crying. The cameras stayed locked on Jimmy, who sat at his desk, holding this letter, unable to speak. 30 seconds passed. 30 seconds of silence on live television. An eternity. Jimmy wiped his eyes. He looked at the letter again. He took a breath. "I have to finish this," he said, more to himself than to the audience. "She trusted me to finish this." He read the final lines. "That laugh was the last gift he gave me. The last good memory before everything went dark. And it was because of you, Jimmy. You gave my father joy when he needed it most. You gave me a memory I can hold on to. So thank you. Thank you for making him laugh. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for loving him the way he loved you. He's gone. But that laugh is still here. And as long as you keep doing what you do, making people laugh, bringing joy, being ridiculously yourself, my dad is still here too. With love and gratitude. Zelda." Jimmy finished reading. He carefully folded the letter and placed it on his desk. He looked into the camera, tears still streaming down his face. "I don't know what to say," he said. "Robin Williams made my career possible. He made me believe I could do this. And Zelda, thank you for trusting me with these words." He paused, composing himself. "If you're watching this and you're struggling, please know that you're not alone. Please reach out. Please talk to someone." Robin brought so much joy to the world, but he was in pain. And that pain doesn't have to be the end of anyone's story. The audience stood. Not in applause, but in solidarity. In grief. In shared understanding that sometimes the funniest people carry the heaviest burdens. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it, because stories like this deserve to be heard. Jimmy didn't do his usual sign-off. He just said, "Good night." And the show ended. After the cameras stopped rolling, Jimmy sat at his desk for 5 minutes, just holding that letter. The crew gave him space. The audience filed out quietly. The lights stayed on. Finally, he stood. He carefully placed the letter in his jacket pocket, over his heart, and walked off the stage. The next morning, Zelda Williams posted on social media, "Thank you, Jimmy Fallon, for honoring my dad with your tears. He would have loved making you cry. And then he would have hugged you." Jimmy had the letter professionally preserved. It doesn't hang in his office. It stays in a private drawer in his desk, the same desk where he reads it before every show, a reminder of why he does this job. Years later, when Jimmy interviewed Lady Gaga about her work on mental health awareness, he mentioned that letter. He said it changed how he thinks about comedy, about pain, about the responsibility of making people laugh. "Robin taught me that joy and sadness aren't opposites," Jimmy said. "They're partners. And the people who make us laugh the hardest are often the ones fighting the darkest battles." The letter from Zelda Williams became more than a moment of television. It became a reminder that behind every laugh is a human heart, and sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is permission to be both joyful and broken at the same time. But there's more to this story that most people don't know. 3 weeks after that episode aired, Jimmy received another envelope. Same handwriting. Same cream-colored stationery. This time, there was no request to read it on air. This one was just for him. Inside was a photograph. Robin Williams and Jimmy Fallon backstage at The Tonight Show, arms around each other, both laughing at something off camera. Jimmy didn't remember when it was taken. Didn't remember the joke. But he remembered the feeling. That specific warmth that came from being around Robin, the sense that anything could happen, that the next 5 minutes would be the funniest 5 minutes of your life. On the back of the photo, Zelda had written a single sentence. "He kept this in his wallet. I thought you should have it." Jimmy called her that night. They talked for 2 hours. About Robin. About grief. About the impossible task of continuing to live in a world that felt fundamentally changed by loss. "The hardest part," Zelda told him, "isn't the big moments. It's not the memorials or the tributes. It's the small things. Seeing a joke he would have loved and having no one to tell it to. Hearing a voice that sounds like his in a crowd. Forgetting for just a second that he's gone, and then remembering all over again." Jimmy understood. He'd been experiencing the same thing. Walking past Robin's dressing room at 30 Rock, the room that would never have Robin Williams in it again. Watching old clips and laughing, then feeling guilty for laughing. The strange mathematics of grief where joy and pain occupy the same space. "Your dad taught me something I didn't fully understand until now," Jimmy said. "He taught me that comedy isn't about avoiding pain. It's about acknowledging it. It's about saying, yes, this hurts, and we're going to laugh anyway because that's how we survive." Zelda was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Jimmy would carry with him for the rest of his career. "My dad used to say that comedy is an act of defiance. The world gives you 1,000 reasons to be sad, and you choose to be funny instead. Not because you're ignoring the sadness. Because you're refusing to let it have the last word." Jimmy thought about that a lot in the months that followed. About defiance. About choosing joy not as an escape from pain but as a response to it. About the courage it takes to be funny when everything hurts. He started doing something new on the show. Whenever a guest mentioned struggling with depression or anxiety or loss, Jimmy didn't change the subject. He didn't pivot to a joke. He sat with it. He let the conversation breathe. He gave people permission to be honest about their pain on a show that was supposed to be about entertainment. Some critics said it was too heavy. That late-night television should be an escape, not a therapy session. But Jimmy disagreed. "Robin taught me that the best comedy comes from truth," he said in an interview a year later. "And the truth is that everyone is fighting something. Everyone has a Robin Williams in their life, someone who seems invincible, who makes everyone laugh, who you never imagined could be struggling. And maybe if we talk about it, if we're honest about it, someone watching will feel less alone." The photograph Zelda sent him, Robin and Jimmy backstage, mid-laugh, sits on Jimmy's desk to this day. Not framed. Not displayed publicly. Just there, leaning against his coffee mug, visible only to him during every show. Before each taping, while the audience is being seated and the band is warming up, Jimmy looks at that photo for exactly 10 seconds. He doesn't say anything. Doesn't make it a ritual or a superstition. He just looks at his friend's face and remembers what it felt like to be in the presence of that much talent, that much kindness, that much pain. And then he walks out onto that stage and tries to do what Robin did, make people laugh while carrying the weight of knowing that laughter is both medicine and mystery, both armor and vulnerability. Zelda Williams occasionally watches The Tonight Show. Not often, it's still hard sometimes. But when she does, she sees her father's influence in every improvised moment, every generous laugh Jimmy gives his guests, every time he makes someone feel seen. "Jimmy honors my dad better than any memorial ever could," she said in a podcast interview 2 years after Robin's death. "He honors him by continuing to do the work. By being kind. By understanding that the people who make us laugh often need us to laugh with them, not at them." The letter Zelda wrote is still in Jimmy's desk drawer. He's read it hundreds of times. Certain passages he's memorized. But he's never read it publicly again. That moment on television, when he broke down, when he couldn't finish, remains the only time the world heard those words in his voice. "Some things are meant to be shared once," Jimmy explained. "That letter was Zelda's gift to the world through me. I was just a messenger. And messengers don't keep delivering the same message forever. They deliver it once, with everything they have, and then they let it live in the hearts of the people who received it." 10 years later, on the anniversary of Robin's death, Jimmy didn't mention it on the show. Didn't do a tribute segment. Didn't replay clips. Instead, he did something quieter. He booked improvisational comedians as guests, the kind of loose, chaotic, unpredictable comedy that Robin had perfected. He let conversations run long. He let laughter fill the studio the way Robin would have wanted. And at the very end of the show, just before the credits rolled, Jimmy held up that photograph, Robin and Jimmy backstage, laughing, and said simply, "Miss you, pal." The camera held on the image for 5 seconds. Then the show ended. That's how you honor a legacy. Not with grand gestures or tearful speeches, but by continuing the work. By making people laugh. By refusing to let the darkness have the last word.